There we go. I always have to wait a little bit for it to finish loading. It's like a no man's land where I know that the camera is on and I'm live, but none of the widgets or anything over here have posted, so it doesn't feel like I'm live. Anyway, hi. Happy Tuesday. Happy Latte with a Librarian night. Um, it is. Oh, I just got a notification that the Township Library is live now. I know, because it's me. It's me. I'm live. Hello. I have a nice cup of tea today. I hope you have something nice and cozy as well. Of course, decaf as always. Even though it's still light, this kind of throwing off my game a little bit that it's still light out, right? Um, uh, because normally I'm like, oh, it's chilly and it's dark, so let's make hot cocoa or tea. And right now I still feel like it's light out, and I know it's very chilly today, but because it's light out, I'm being tricked into feeling like it's supposed to be warm. It should be warm next week. We'll see. I have this wonderful tea. I forget what it is. It's by Lipton. It's like de-stress or stress away or something like that. But I just like it because it's really cozy. It's cinnamon and lavender and chamomile. It's the perfect tea to wind down with. And I've got my favorite little ghost mug, my absolute favorite. It's still piping hot though, so probably by the time I'm done with this video with everyone on here, it'll be cool enough for me to start sipping on. It is piping hot. So this week, I did finish Chatter by Ethan Kross. Again, that's The Voice in Our Head, Why It Matters and How to Harness It. I did finish that, and I enjoyed it. It was very interesting. Um, I have not yet listened to, I mentioned it to you last week, that there was a podcast called Get Wealthy, W-E-L-L, Wealthy, it's all about wellness, by Michelle Smith. And he was on a recent episode of that. I haven't listened to that yet, so I'll probably listen to it tomorrow while I'm doing some of my morning routine, which is answering emails and going through publisher alerts and things of that nature. So I'll probably listen to it in the morning just to see how it follows up to his writing here. So yeah, I just thought it was really interesting to read. It's all about that voice in our head, and when it goes negative, what do you do? And how do you use the voice in your head to get yourself through tough situations? There were some interesting stories in there about, a major league pitcher who got into his head and can no longer pitch, and he disappeared for a while, and then eventually he came back, but for a while he was in his head and all of a sudden just could not throw a good pitch because he was in his head. There's one about a student who was on an NSA scholarship, so she agreed to train and work for the NSA, and they would pay for her schooling, but she had some tight restrictions there, and so it was all about how she felt the restrictions were making her lonely and depressed, and it was so hard to keep up with school. And so how did she change those thoughts in her head and that situation to something that helped her get through it? So that was really interesting. There was there were a couple in here. I think, well, one of these, so he wrote this, finished this during this time. It was just published. Let's see, I want to see. Yeah, so this is the one. So yeah, so he talks about like distancing ourselves from our thoughts, and not in a way where you ignore your thoughts, but you think about your past or you think about your future. So for that student, she actually went on this long journey where she discovered her family's past, like all the way down to her great great greats. When family of hers, they were slaves, she was able to trace some of her heritage back to being a descendant of George Washington. She um, found solace in learning about her family and her history and herself through that, and she felt so calm having this project to work on, and connecting herself to her family and herself and her past made her feel better about some of the isolation she had in her current times, because it reminded her that it's not going to be forever and that she's come from someplace so wonderful. So then the author, Ethan Cross, talks about, I'll read it to you. In a certain sense, then, what temporal distancing promotes is one of the facets of wisdom, the understanding that the world is constantly in flux and circumstances are going to change. Recognizing that feature of life when it comes to negative experiences can be tremendously alleviating. It is what helped me, for example, cope with what was arguably the most chatter-provoking event of the past century. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it because I don't know if the video will get flagged if I say it, but the 2020 situation. I don't know if you've seen on social media, like a lot of folks are kind of like self-censoring because they don't want things to get tagged. But I mean, this paragraph is about the 2020 pandemic. As schools closed, quarantines began to take effect, and the world outside became quiet. Chatter began to brew in my mind just like millions of other people. Will social distancing affect my children's well-being? How am I going to survive without leaving the house for weeks? Turned out to be much more. Will the economy ever improve? Focusing on how I would feel once the pandemic ends made me realize that what we're going through was temporary. Just as countless pandemics had come and gone in the long history of our species, so too would this threat eventually pass, and that buoyed my inner voice. So where the student was going through her past, this particular author was thinking about all of the things to look forward to. And when you project yourself and think about the future and make your inner voice talk about your future and all of the wonderful things that can still be to come, that silences that current chatter that says everything is terrible right now, everything is awful. So again, there's just some interesting stuff about how you can use your inner voice and try to change the course of your inner voice to not necessarily be more positive. It's okay to feel feelings and to feel a certain way, but to just give yourself a break. There was another part in here that I thought was interesting. I don't know if I'll be able to find it because I didn't bookmark it, but Ethan Cross and some other neurologists and scientists who are studying the brain did find that when you are under an extreme amount of stress, because they did brain scans and stuff, when you're under an extreme amount of stress, it is the same neurological pathways that light up in the brain as when you are physically in pain, and that when you are actually stressed, the inflammation centers are super triggered. So I'm sure you've heard, when people are stressed, if they have chronic symptoms, their chronic symptoms flare up, or in the past year, maybe somebody who has been feeling achy and in pain and not themselves, or they have a chronic illness that's been acting up because apparently constant stress is the same as triggering your inflammation, and it's been proven. And I thought that was so fascinating. There were a lot of fascinating, interesting little tidbits in here, and it's a pretty quick read. I mean, a lot of the back half of this here is notes and acknowledgments. I mean, there are thorough notes in here. He did thorough research. So the actual text of the book is not super long, but it was very interesting. Like I said, I'm going to listen to that podcast, if not tomorrow, probably Thursday, just to hear what he has to say. Especially on the topic of just general wellness for ourselves, right? I don't know what I'm going to read next, to be honest. I have some holds that I deliver later on Libby, and I do have some things on my shelf that I should probably return if I don't think I can read them in the next couple of days, which mostly it's been cookbooks. But yeah, I have not yet started anything new. I kind of haven't been in the mood recently, but I do want to share just a couple of the new releases for this week, and I also wanted to share, if you are an avid Hoopla user, you may have found that Hoopla looks a little different I had a hard time figuring it out. It's very obvious, but when you're used to things running a certain way, I was a little frustrated trying to find cookbooks the other day. That's all I do is look for cookbooks. So now when you go onto Hoopla, it used to be at the top, it used to be like popular, recommended, featured, but now there are these little carousels down here. So you can scroll through the carousels. And recommended is based off of like the things that you've searched for, the things that you've checked out. Popular, the things that are popular, and featured are the things that they want to feature that they think that might be notable. And then I got confused because usually at the top there's like that, used to be at the top there used to be that genre button so you could actually search by subject, and I couldn't find it and I was very frustrated. It's down here. It's in this big button that I guess I overlooked because my brain is hardwired to think that a big banner that doesn't belong is an advertisement, I guess. But it is down here, so if that's how you like to search through genres and collections, there it is, just the way it always was. And that's how I was able to find my cookbooks. Oh, my cookbooks, my favorite. But also don't forget it is National Craft Month, so there's also the Craft and Hobbies tab, which is really exciting. Dye, fashion, felting, fiber arts and textiles, flower arranging, framing, glass and glassware, nature crafts, needlework, papercraft, polymer clay. Polymer clay, that's a fun one. Oh my gosh, look at how cute! Everything from making cute little figures to actually making some beads and jewelry. Just explore Hoopla. There's so much on here. There's just so much. I'm just looking to see if there's anything interesting or new on movies that they just added, but always featured on there as popular is The Pigeon Finds a Hot Dog. Everybody loves Pigeon, the animated version of the Pigeon. The Pigeon series. Kids Bop 2021, if you go under music, super popular. I wondered if they made a Grammys thing. No. But because it is St. Patrick's Day tomorrow, they did make a Music of Ireland tab, and another really popular is Irish punk music. Super cool. Super cool. Like the Dropkick Murphys and Flogging Molly, all those really popular, awesome ones. Oh, look, the WandaVision TV series soundtrack. So you can feel all of your feelings if you're still feeling your feelings about WandaVision, which I am. All of the feelings from WandaVision. Still. Yeah, so that's kind of the new thing about Hoopla is, just don't make sure you don't lose that little button that's in the middle, because that's how you can browse more easily. And it's on the movies page. It's on all of them, but now you just gotta have to look for it. Don't overlook it like I did. It's there. All right, so I have a couple of new ones to share today. Let's see. Let's go to my shelf. All right, so the big one today that a lot of people were asking about, we got a couple phone calls about it this morning, Harlan Coben's Win. Brand new, always popular, the Harlan Coben books, I think there are, as of this morning, there were 240 requests in the system. Yeah, everybody's waiting for this book. Our copy is, of course, already circulating. Everybody's very excited. So let's see what this one is about. Over 20 years ago, the heiress Patricia Lockwood was abducted during a robbery of her family's estate, then locked inside an isolated cabin for months. Patricia escaped, but so did her captors, and the items stolen from her family were never recovered. Until now. On the Upper West Side, a recluse is found murdered in his penthouse apartment alongside two objects of note, a stolen Vermeer painting and a leather suitcase bearing the initials WHL3. For the first time in years, the authorities have a lead, not only on Patricia's kidnapping, but also on another FBI cold case, with the suitcase and painting both pointing them toward one man. Windsor Horn Lockwood III, or Win, as his few friends call him, doesn't know how his suitcase and his family's stolen painting ended up with a dead man. But his interest is piqued, especially when the FBI tells him that the man who kidnapped his cousin was also behind an act of domestic terrorism, and that the conspirators may still be at large. The two cases have baffled the FBI for decades, but Win has three things the FBI doesn't: a personal connection to the case, an ungodly fortune, and his own unique brand of justice. So, it sounds very interesting, and I'm curious to hear how everybody feels about it when they're done reading it. Let's see, what else have we got that is new and interesting? This one is only available on Libby as an audiobook right now, but this is, I know a lot of people have been talking about Don Lemon's book, This Is the Fire. And of course, he does read his own audiobook, so Don Lemon brings his vast audience and experience as a reporter and a black man in today's most urgent question: how can we end racism in America in our lifetimes? Beginning with a letter to one of his black nephews, he proceeds with reporting and reflections on his slave ancestors, his upbringing in the shadows of segregation, and his adult confrontations with politicians, activists, and scholars. In doing so, Lemon offers a searing and poetic ultimatum to America. He visits the slave port where a direct ancestor was shackled and shipped to America. He recalls a slave uprising in Louisiana just a few miles from his birthplace. And he takes us to the heart of the 2020 protests in New York City. As he writes to his young nephew, we must resist racism every single day. We must resist it with love. It's not a very long audiobook. It's only about 5 hours, and I'm sure it's very interesting to hear him read it himself, of course. Let's see, what else? Oh, this one's funny. So, this one came out today, but I keep getting it confused with one that comes out next month. This is Are We There Yet by Kathleen West. And then I keep getting it confused with Mother May I by Jocelyn Jackson. I guess the grass motif might be a new cover trend. I don't know. I keep getting confused. But anyway, Are We There Yet by Kathleen West. Among fake Instagram pages, long-buried family secrets, and the horrors of middle school, one suburban mom searches to find herself in a heartfelt and thought-provoking novel from the author of Minor Dramas and Other Catastrophes. Let's see. Alice Sullivan feels like she's finally found her groove in middle age, but it only takes one moment for her perfectly curated life to unravel. On the same day she learns her daughter is struggling in second grade, a call from her son's school accusing him of bullying throws Alice into a tailspin. When it comes to light that the incident is part of a new behavior pattern for her son, one complete with fake social media profiles with a lot of questionable content, Alice's social standing is quickly eroded. My cat is snoring, sorry. Alice's social standing is quickly eroded to one of those moms who can't control her kids. Soon she's facing the very judgment she was all too happy to dole out when she thought no one was looking, or when she thought her house wasn't made of glass. Then her mother unloads a family secret she's kept for more than 30 years, and Alice's entire perception of herself is shattered. As her son's new reputation polarizes her friendships and her family buzzes with the ramification of her mother's choices, Alice realizes that she's been too focused on measuring her success and happiness by everyone else's standards. Now, with all her shortcomings laid bare, she'll have to figure out to whom to turn for help and decide who she really wants to be. So again, that's Are We There Yet? And I feel like that sounds pretty relevant to today, right? There's so many people who, feel like they want their lives to be perfect because that's what we see everywhere, and that's not how life is, right? Life is not perfect. Life is full of so many different moments, whether they're ups or downs or struggles or triumphs or happiness. I mean, there are just so many different moments, so I feel like this book is really relevant to a lot of stuff. Another one that I thought was really interesting. It's not on Libby, but we do have it at the library. This is the New York Times Cooking No Recipe Recipes. It's just this big red book, and if you watch Book Cooks, you'll see sometimes I don't measure. I don't measure any of my things. I just kind of like put it all in there. And sometimes I do measure. Sometimes I try to stay faithful to the recipe. But sometimes I just kind of toss things in there, and I say, when you're cooking, it's okay. When you're baking, that's a no-no. But when you're cooking, you could just cook. Just go based off of your taste. And so that's what this cookbook is. It is ingredients, no measurements, just kind of loose and for the enjoyment of cooking. The debut cookbook from the popular New York Times website and mobile app NYT Cooking, featuring 100 vividly photographed no-recipe recipes to make weeknight cooking more inspired and delicious. Let's see. Sam Sifton, an assistant managing editor and founding editor of NYT Cooking, has inspired millions of home cooks with his informal, improvisational, no-recipe recipes, published in his beloved regular newsletter, What to Cook. Sifton's argument is a simple one. Cooking without a recipe is a kitchen skill every home cook can develop. It's easier than you think, and it's a way to make nightly cooking more satisfying and fun. Now, NYT Cooking is making it truly easy for all home cooks to build their intuitive cooking confidence with a stylish, compact handbook of 100 no-recipe required meals, each photographed and described beautifully and laid out with minimal suggestions of ingredients and approximate amounts, like a glug and a fistful. Dishes such as weeknight fried rice, fettuccine with minted ricotta, and smothered pork chops and onions and sautéed greens. I thought that sounded so interesting. And how do you get better at cooking than just by trying it and following your chef's intuition, right? And so I took a quick look through it. I didn't really look through it too much, but there are no measurements. There are no measurements. It's just ingredients, and you follow your intuition and you follow your own taste buds. And I thought that was a great idea to put that all together into a cookbook. Let's see, do I have anything else? This one sounded really interesting. This is the Lamp Liners by Emma Stonex. There it is. There we go. There's so much glare. Okay. A whodunit horror novel ghost story. Inspired by a haunting true story, a gorgeous and atmospheric novel about the mysterious disappearance of 3 lighthouse keepers from a remote tower miles from the Cornish coast, and about the wives who were left behind. What strange fate befell these doomed men? The heavy sea whispers their names. Black rocks roll beneath the surface, drowning ghosts. And out of the swell, like a finger of light, a salt-scratched tower stands lonely and magnificent. It is New Year's Eve, 1972, when a bolt pulls up to the Maiden Rock Lighthouse with relief for the keepers. But no one greets them. When the entrance door, locked from the inside, is battered down, rescuers find an empty tower. A table is laid for a meal not eaten. The principal keeper's weather log describes a storm raging round the tower, but the skies have been clear all week, and the clocks have all stopped at 8:45. 2 decades later, the wives who are left behind are visited by a writer who is determined to find the truth about the men's disappearance, moving between the women's stories and the men's last weeks together in the lighthouse. Long-held secrets surface, and truths twist into lies as we piece together what happened, why, and who to believe. A story of isolation and obsession, of reality and illusion, and of what it takes to keep the light burning when all else is swallowed by dark. So that was also just released today. That one just sounds really interesting. So I wanted to share that one as well. And a couple like other little ones. I mean, there are a lot more, but how many of today's release can I share? There are so many. Like Giada De Laurentiis has a new one, Eat Better, Feel Better, which is less of a cookbook. There are some recipes and more of just like an overall wellness guide, but like her personal wellness guide. I didn't love it, but I know that some people will enjoy seeing just so simply laid out. Sometimes we need a reminder of eat healthy, take care of yourself, get up and stretch. Some tips for wellness, and then just the back of it is filled with recipes that are just clean and fresh and not difficult. And that's part of taking care of yourself is feeding yourself. It's all about full body wellness, right? So it's definitely interesting. It's not her typical cookbook, but for those who are looking for some more wellness resources, which are so popular right now, there it is. Eat better, feel better. And if you love Chip and Joanna Gaines, and maybe you are like me and you binge watched all of their show, I forget what the name of the show is. There's so many home shows that I binge watched. I think I went through that one in about a week, about a year ago. Chip Gaines has a new one that came out today. It's called No Pain, No Gains. The good stuff doesn't come easy. Offers his hilarious wit and trademark wisdom on the value of network building, the relationships and connections that are so critical to our success and happiness, both in business but also in the greater arena of life. So if you like Chip and Joanna, that one is for you. I know he has another one too, an older one. And then, of course, they have the Magnolia story, and she has the Magnolia cookbooks, which are actually delicious. So that's some of the stuff that came out this week. Of course, there are so many more. You can always make an appointment to come in and browse. We have our big wall of new books that are always available. You can always fill out our book match form if you're not sure what to read. That's in the middle of our homepage. If you scroll down, you'll see it. Or just give us a call if you're not sure what to read. And we can talk you through some of the new books that we have on the shelf or give you some suggestions. We always love chatting with everyone. But that is it for me for tonight, for this week. Tune in tomorrow. I'm cooking from my favorite cookbook, which is the America's Test Kitchen Cookbook. I wasn't actually sure what I was going to cook this week, and then on the big wall of new books, I saw our copy had recently been returned and was sitting on the shelf, and it is a hefty cookbook, so I have it on the Kindle, but it's a great cookbook, so I'm going to cook from that tomorrow. All right, that's it. I hope that my tea has cooled down so I can go get comfortable and enjoy it, and that is it. I wish you all a wonderful evening, a wonderful rest of the week, and of course, as always, happy reading, everybody. Bye!